Hi, I'm Sherry Biko, and I'm very pleased to be presenting a blank canvas showing tonight. What I'm going to be talking about is life drawing, my favorite, and I love doing portraits of people. I'm very interested in the movement of the face. Having a live model to me is so much more exciting than just working from a photograph. Our model tonight is Chelsea Hansen, and she has modeled for us before and is a wonderful model. And so what I'm going to be starting with tonight is one of 3 5-minute sketches. Generally we start our night with that, and what I do is position the head so that she is looking in 3 different directions. It gives us a more three-dimensional idea of what the head looks like. And of course, because we're trying to get the best likeness possible, having that concept of what her nose looks or eyes look from various angles is very helpful in creating the best likeness possible. So right now I have Chelsea in a standing pose, and we have 5 minutes, and we're starting right now. What I generally start with, if I'm doing a 5-minute pose, is I'm working to get the best likeness possible, so I am more often going to be just working on the headshot. And of course, some of the other artists may be more interested in doing the full body, but my preference is definitely working on the face and getting as familiar with it as is possible. And I generally start with an eye or the oval shape of the face, but in this particular case, I am going to be starting with an eye. The eye is one of the most important areas of the whole face. I use it as a measuring tool for all of the other features. So when I get my eyes laid in, it's very important for me because from the positioning of those eyes, I'm able to determine the width of the nose, the width of the mouth, how the rest of the face will be set in. So, and we have wonderful lighting that has been set up tonight with our camera crew. And these shadows are very, very nice in that they give us a very, very three-dimensional representation of the face once again. I've done a number of portraits from a photograph, and they certainly are very much more difficult to give a really good liveliness of the model, just because they're often very flat, kind of washed out. The lighting isn't really very contrasting, so everything just looks flat. And in fact, sometimes it's almost even difficult to see some of the features because they're just very, very blah and very uninteresting. So right now I'm kind of setting in some of the shadows, but still really working mainly on determining how these features all work in relationship to one another. When I select a model that I'm going to be drawing, it's one of my favorite things. I'm always on the watch for models, and I love to see people who have interesting faces, interesting features, and it's not necessarily that they're the most beautiful model or someone that may be selected for a magazine cover, but someone who has a face with just character and often even recognizable features that I think will really work well into a portrait. And some of our favorite models, which certainly isn't what Chelsea is, but a lot of older people have a lot of character in their faces, a lot of lines that they all ask us if we could kindly remove them, but we really want to keep them because they're the part, that's a part of the model that I think is so fascinating, is all those character lines. And they certainly are very interesting. And that's one of the things that these shadows are giving us as well, is just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful lines here. And I'll just try to complete this little bit of here, just to give you an idea of Chelsea's hair. It's just coming in right here and coming in off here. I love curly hair. It's beautiful. Although I have to say, even I love bald people, so they're all interesting in their own way. And also very important when you're doing a portrait to get those shoulders in, even if you are just working on the face. I think it gives a lot more stability to your painting and gives a bit more weight to what the model is doing. Okay, that's our 5-minute time. So we will be going to break right now, and we will be back right after this. Hi everybody, welcome back. We've repositioned Chelsea into another pose. Once again, this time I'm getting even more than a 3/4 view from the almost forward face on that I had earlier. So again, the shadows have changed a bit. The highlights are also a little bit different. And it's, as I said before, just giving me a more 360-degree angling of the face just to get an impression of her full face and head. And so just again, beginning this drawing, the lighting is, as I said before, so interesting. Those shadows are so actually challenging, but very, very nice. And Penny, one of the other drawers here today, was just saying it's even kind of a Rembrandt because it is a really defined shadow. Is that right, Penny? And so anyway, just carrying on. As we're drawing, very important tools to use, and particularly as you're beginning drawing, is remembering all the time that measuring is a key part of portrait drawing. If you are not using the measuring tools that you have available, you very often will have a very alien appearing finished product because your mouth may not be aligned or your eyes may not be aligned. So what I do as I'm drawing all the time, I'm trying to go back, line up everything. So if I see the tear duct is here, I'm following my plumb line down. Is that the edge of the mouth? Yes, it is. That's what I want to see. I'm checking with, when I start my second eye, generally there's about an eye width in between the two eyes. So I'm just making that check. And yes, I like that position. And going into then the second eye. And all that gorgeous hair. And when we're doing our 5-minute sketches, we're really just seeking out information more than anything. It doesn't have to be the best drawing in the world. Maybe even a time that I think I'm going to struggle with that model's mouth, or something that may be a little bit more challenging, but that I find very interesting and I want to do it well. So I may even just really focus a lot of my 5-minute period of time just on that feature that I think is difficult. But if it's a model that I feel fairly comfortable with what I'm seeing, then I'll just be blocking all that information in. And again, just checking always. I like the edge of the mouth is very most likely to line up with the pupil. So again, it's a quick check, running those lines down. Yes, it's working. Again, checking the side of the nostril is going to line up with the eye sac, tear duct sac there. And so just basically, as you're doing a portrait, you're constantly going back and back, measuring, and ensuring that we're having the lining up that we want to have happen. It's sometimes amazing how a drawing can be unsuccessful looking, and by just changing the position of the mouth or whatever particular feature is actually out of line, you can suddenly get the drawing back on track and looking much better just by simply ensuring, yes, this is where it should be, and moving it into the correct position. These shadows are very, very interesting. And also, and I'm not spending a lot of detailed time on these eyes just because they're very, very dark at this particular time. And so we're just getting a lot of shadow in there. And Chelsea has this beautiful, fine, slender face. And we are getting close. 5 minutes is actually an amazing time period. You can achieve a lot in 5 minutes. And it really makes you appreciate when you suddenly have a whole 10 minutes to work with that, wow, this is a very nice extra bit of time to get more information in. There we go. We've got this little bit of information already neatly put in. And again, like I said before, I always like to at least include those shoulders and give her a little bit more substance. And thank you, Chelsea, for that particular pose, and we'll be right back. We're back for our last of the 5-minute poses. Chelsea's a wonderful model, and I just have to say again, we're just appreciating it so much because when you have a still model, it makes a world of difference. We have had so many wonderful models, but we've also had our share of models who find it very, very difficult to sit still, and it certainly does make it hard to get any kind of a likeness going just because the model is changing position constantly. And Chelsea certainly is outstanding in that she's able to keep a pose and keep a beautiful expression on her face, and we really, really appreciate that. I was going to mention that we are drawing at the Medicine Hat Culture Center tonight, and it's our standard, for years and years and years, Tuesday night life drawing class. I've been a member of the Hat Art Club for 37 years now, which is amazing, and I've been leading the life drawing class probably for almost 30 years. And of recent, Fran Lazon has been my partner and taking over for a lot of the winter when I'm away. And it's a wonderful, wonderful class to be able to participate in. And I discovered while in Phoenix that it's not something you have. Every art club may not have a life drawing group, and I just took it for granted, and now I realize how very, very fortunate that I am to come back to Medicine Hat and have this wonderful opportunity to draw a live model every week, and it's just fabulous. So now again, we're seeing some beautiful, beautiful highlights in the eyes, which I'm going to catch here, just because Chelsea's looking this way and we're catching that. One of the best tools of the artist is using whatever happens to be at hand. And so I often use my pencil if I'm trying to determine if something's on an angle. I will use my pencil to give me an idea of how that particular slope is working. Chelsea's in a little bit of a forward pose, so of course that's a different look to if she's sitting back in her chair as she has been on the other poses. And again, this beautiful shadowing that we're following all the way down her face. And that gorgeous highlight. Because I'm working in just a charcoal pencil, graphite pencil right now, I'm not having to worry about any of the colors. So right now I'm just more concerned with light tones, highlights, and deep shadows, and then all the midtones. So I'm really trying to get that into my mind about where all these differences in tone are. Of interest, you'll almost always see that because the upper lip is shadowed by the nose, the upper lip will be of a darker, in a darker shadow than the lower lip. And there's usually a beautiful shadow just underneath the lips. And I'm just getting some of these beautiful shadows in, and then just starting to indicate the hair, this gorgeous, gorgeous curl. And again, this is just a sketchy representation, and all mostly just information that I'm storing away for when I'm able to do a color portrait of Chelsea. And again, getting in that beautiful neckline and measuring up for the shoulders. And because in this particular pose, Chelsea is way forward, I actually see that her left shoulder is, well, it's her right shoulder. But anyway, it's intersecting just actually at the lip line or a little bit below that, right up here. But I won't put that into this drawing because without drawing the rest of the figure, it doesn't really make sense. So I'll just put that in as a standard down here. And that's time. And we'll be right back. We are back, and Chelsea is now going to be in a 10-minute pose, which we are going to start right now. We go from the 5 minutes to a 10-minute, 15-minute, and I was just mentioning that in an hour we may easily have 5 or 6 drawings, and then generally we set aside the last 45 minutes of our evening because we have a 2-hour spot that we use. Then that last 45 minutes to an hour is what we're going to use on a more finished drawing or painting. And when we have a regular class here, there could be people who are moving around all through the evening, maybe getting different vantage points, or maybe they don't want to have as long of a pose. So in this particular pose, I'm going to get a little bit more of the positioning of Chelsea's body. So I'm just kind of looking at that gorgeous attitude that she's got here, and then looking again, just kind of measuring in those shoulder lines. And again, I use everything at my disposal, like even the straps of her shirt can be helpful, but just looking at everything just to kind of get an impression of what the body positioning is like. This is such a beautiful pose just because Chelsea has got clasped hands. Hands are also one of my favorite things to draw. They're not everybody's favorite because they are a little bit of a challenge. And one of the things that I say a lot when I'm talking to the class is just always remember something that is your hand is about the same size as your face, and when people hold the hand up to their own face, they're amazed because they always seem to make the hands or feet far less significant because they're not either interested in doing them or they aren't very comfortable doing them, so they'll make them much smaller. Now in this particular pose, because Chelsea's got her head at a bit of a tilt, so we've drawn that tilt, and I'm just going to draw in some of the lines that I like to use just to help me to remember that Chelsea's looking down, and you can see that I've divided my oval head into about a half. At the halfway point is where Chelsea's eyes are going to be fitting. And then her nose is going to be in this particular area looking down. Okay, and so the halfway point is about where the eyes are going to be, and there's all kinds of different literature which say the way that they believe the face should be broken down. But I do an approximation of about halfway. Then when I'm looking at where does the base of the nose and the lip line go, I'm dividing that remaining half area into about thirds. And again, that's just an approximation. And I adjusted it accordingly as I'm drawing, just till I'm more comfortable with what that's looking like. And I've moved Chelsea out of the really strong light shadow that we had in the 5-minute drawings, just to see if this would be a little bit more interesting to draw and maybe even a little less difficult. Chelsea has a beautiful, beautiful bow in her upper lip, and I'm just catching that. That lip line is very, very important expressive line in the portrait. A lot of people just think it's a very straight line, but instead it actually has a lot of movement in that line, and it's really important to get that expression because it can be depicting all different emotions, as in a smiling model, sad model, contemplative, whatever the model happens to be doing. And again, now I'm just going in and readjusting that once more. When you're doing a portrait, you're constantly adjusting, and I'm not really, although I do have an eraser in hand, I'm very seldom going to use an eraser when I'm just doing this familiarizing stage of the drawings. I'm just loving drawing Chelsea's hair. And again, just get an idea of the mass of the hair. You don't have to draw every hair. A lot of people get kind of caught up in, oh, I just love all this hair. And then after they've drawn in so many little hair, they realize, man, that really didn't achieve much of anything other than giving a really artificial looking weird bang or hair mass. But I generally look at it as a whole. I'm looking for the shadows and the highlights and the movement and basically the size that I want that hair to fill in and where it falls over in the body, and then coming back again, filling in to the line of Chelsea's little t-shirt here, and then reinforcing. And again, I often will draw fairly lightly until I'm happy with what I've put in, and then I'll just go back out and firm up my line. And again, checking all the time, do I like I remember that, just even an example is the arm. The arm is not just a real straight line. There's all kinds of indentations and curvatures that are so beautiful that you never want to not include them in your drawing. They're just what make the human body so beautiful and so flowing, so curvaceous. And even with Chelsea's very fine, slender form, there's so much beauty in all the different variants. And also, again, the shadow is a really big player in this because you can just see, because it's so well defined, it really gives a beautiful shape even to these arms, just getting that shadow placed in there. And we're also looking shadow, of course, remember in front of, because the arm is in front of that area of the chest, we're going to have shadowing in there. and there's pretty deep shadow on this part of the arm, and again on this part of the t-shirt. And then always think about where your light source is. Of course, in this particular scenario, we're having light coming in from different areas, but you still want to remember where your main light source is. And one of the main highlights I always look for is there's a great highlight, usually on the tip of the nose, above the lip, the upper lip line. There's generally a beautiful shadow, which of course I'm seeing again. Also right here on the chin, upper shadows here. And so looking nose, and beautiful right here in the eyes. And so generally what I do is I have the dark, dark pupil that I don't draw a complete circle. I always leave a space for that beautiful highlight, and that's whether I'm doing it in color, in black and white, or Conti, whatever medium I'm using. You really want to make sure that you're keeping that line. And then just... And another thing that I'm really noticing tonight is because of the beautiful shadowing, there's a gorgeous, even in this gorgeous reflected light, just on the edge of Chelsea's chin. And so I just remember to keep that in. So we've got the deepest shadow right in here, coming in here, and then going into bringing down that hairline. Okay, and then in here we're seeing a little bit of a lighter shadowing, and there we go. And there's beautiful shadows, of course, underneath the, and then just bringing in this hair. Okay, and that's our 10-minute sketch. Thank you very much for joining us for our short sketch drawings. Remembering that these are preliminary to our final 1 hour or 45-minute color or more detailed drawing where we have a little bit more time to put into expressing more of the model's features. And also just a reminder that if you are interested in joining an art club, we have the Hat Art Club that, as I've said, I've been a member of for 37 years. And there's also the Strathcona Art Club that is a wonderful venue for learning. If you're just a novice, remember that they have wonderful instructors and great opportunities for you to learn and become an artist in your own